It's never too late to talk about it.
Or we might talk about pulling out.
Sweet and warm, that's me. That's me.
Yo, this is your boy Gilligan, and welcome to Common Conversations and the Let's Talk About Sex series. This is a conversation that we have and engage about all things related to sexual health. Men, women, LGBTQ, heterosexual, pansexual. You said something like multisexual, demisexual, all the sexuals. Yes. So we're going to get down. Hopefully you will learn something and leave some comments so that we can engage a little differently as well. As we journey through all these different episodes that we're going to bring to you. So our last episode was consensual sex from a women's standpoint. And we talked about bringing it back and maybe cutting it up a little bit. And so we brought a special friend we found out on the corner, and he's going to talk to us a little bit.
That kind of corner.
Yes.
Wait,
right. And today's conversation is about consensual sex from a man's point of view. And so hopefully we'll hear from the ladies a little bit about what they had to say, what they feel, and then we'll also talk about where men come from in the spaces of consent as well, because we also need consent sometimes. Mm-hmm. And depending on the nature of the relationship, again, getting back to last conversation is about not doing any harm and being better people so that we can have better sex.
For sure.
Mm-hmm. Is that what we said?
That's what we said.
That's what we said.
That's good. You did good.
That's the goal. So,
and you're less outnumbered today.
I'm less outnumbered. I know. This feels so.
You got
How you doing?
How you doing? All right, cool. So this should be a good volley, and we got Ashley in the middle.
That could be good or bad for you guys.
That's because she's your referee.
She's the referee.
Yes.
All right, done, data. So, you know what? So if you're tuning in for the first time, I want you to get to know who everybody is. So real quick, what's your name?
Oh, I thought Miguel was going to introduce thyself first, but my name is Amira of The Amira Show. We focus on sexuality, sex work, the LGBT plus community, and also the empowerment and liberation of women. All women. That's me. I'm 30, love cats, and the color purple.
There we go.
Cats in purple.
Cats in purple.
Do you have a purple cat?
No, I wish.
Do you dress your cat up in purple clothing?
No.
Oh, okay.
So nothing's combining or colliding here.
You have
They're
purple
just
in your shirt today.
true. Oh yes. Shout out to
There you
Sis
go.
Scott T.
Hey, look, and the screen's just for you.
Oh, it is purple because last time it was pink, right?
Yeah.
So this is the Amira Show, basically.
Let's
Welcome.
go.
Well, I'm happy to be a guest on the Mirror Show. My name is Reese, and I am a PhD student in the public health department at U of L. Mm-hmm. And I am a pleasure researcher. I have a cat and dog, and my favorite color is coral again. And also, fun fact. Oh, no, I don't have one, sorry.
Oh shit.
How you going to softly introduce a
I
fun
really
fact
wanted
and
to,
then
and then I couldn't think of anything. So.
Today's show is about teasing.
Dun.
I love it.
Oh, I would love to do a show.
I love it here.
Yeah.
It's a little
Okay.
flirt.
Welcome,
That's
Reese.
the-
Well, I mean, it is consensual, so if we
Yes.
might be able to thread it in. But Dr. Ashley, who are you?
You already told
You
them.
just said well, we know.
My name is Dr. Ashley Anderson. I'm a women's health nurse practitioner, have worked as such for the last 15 years, and I own a practice here in Louisville called Athena Health and Wellness, where we take care of all things female. So happy to be here
Absolutely.
and referee you two
Yes.
gentlemen.
It'll be fine. It's gonna be fine.
Thank you, Doctor.
And so with us, we have Dr. Jason Deakings.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to get that out. Mr.
The
PhD,
hands.
Thanks, guys.
who focuses on all things social equity, Black women's studies. Yes, and you are, I forgot, the Impact Director.
Impact Director for the Hope Bus.
The Hope, what is the Hope Bus?
Yes, the Hope
Shout out
Bus.
to
So
the
the Hope
Hope
Bus
Bus
is a local nonprofit, focuses on health equity, social justice, food insecurity, all things to help Black people, and resources, really, getting resources to Black people. So, yes, that's what I do. Help them with everything from grant writing, protocols, procedures, stuff like that, but primarily research on Black women. Yeah. Shout out to my homie Station. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
We love you, Stacia.
We
Yeah.
love you.
Yeah. Yep.
So I want to lead with this particular show a little different. So I'm gonna say a
Oh,
statement.
he's gonna act different today.
Yeah, I know.
So what's
Oh
different?
man,
Just
I'm
sit
scared.
up.
Okay, let's.
I'm gonna be 35.
I got to know you.
Okay.
Oh, now
That's definitely an improvement.
So you show up, doctor.
Yes,
And now
yes.
he's
He's acting
grown.
different?
Now he
Okay.
gonna act
Now
different.
he
Okay.
grown.
He's acting brand new.
He has a
Okay.
peer with him now.
Yes.
Well,
A doctor.
Continue.
You know what I mean?
So
Like
you're trying to be
I mean, we had a
distinguished.
doctor, but now we have two.
Yeah.
now we got 2 doctors.
We had a doctor.
Patriarchy. Come on.
I'm just
Doctor,
gonna
he
I'm just
can
gonna
relate
stay in
to
it.
all
I'm just staying in the child bus. I'm gonna get back in it.
So much for 35.
We here.
Yeah, right. So there's like these 2 stats that run around in my head, and I know like talking about consent in the sense of a man's standpoint has been something I've been chasing, right? And several of us have had conversations about what it looks like, what it feels like, and at what angle do we discuss it, right? And at first I was thinking about the aspect of, I live in Southern Indiana, and it's like 1 out of every 6 boys will be molested before they get out of middle school. And that's just what's recorded. And so I think about that, and then, there's a stat, I believe, that is 1 in 9 are made to penetrate someone during their lifetime. Like, that's a forced scenario. And I'm thinking, like, when we talk about consent, how do we better prepare our young men, as much as we're preparing our young women, to protect themselves, right? And looking at what is good, what is bad. And at the same time, how do we teach them to live with, engage with women in a way that it's more caring, it's more understanding, and they're also receiving consent, right? And so I want us, if we can, explore this together, right, in a conversation. And Doc, well, see, now I gotta lean over for
I
Doc.
was to say which doc.
Because I think
Jace.
yes. So can I, Dr. Jason? Can I do it,
Yeah.
Doc? Okay. So Dr. Jason, I think about, as men growing up, how did you? When did you first get introduced to consensual behavior?
Probably young. I mean, like, I think I share a narrative with a lot of like young black men, in that I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew something wasn't right. And so I was like, huh. But as a man, or as a boy, as a young boy, I got a whole bunch of uncles. I thought it was appropriate for me to not say anything. This is like, I'm supposed to go through this. So the first time I experienced something like that was probably like 11 years old, older cousin. And, I was doing things with her in the room. We were at a family reunion. I didn't know what I was doing. But I didn't say anything because I thought I shouldn't say anything. I don't know who told me I shouldn't say anything, but I felt that way. And again, maybe that was from my uncles. Maybe that was from, I was raised by my mom and grandma, but they helped in that nurturing. And so I felt like there was a narrative of like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go do that. And if you don't, and if you don't like it, something's wrong with you. And so I think for a lot of black boys, if you don't like what's happening to you, something's wrong with you. That is a narrative that is shared with a lot of my friends, a lot of my homies. I just didn't say nothing. Because then somebody's going to say, well, what's wrong with you? What happened? And why didn't you like it?
You are so right.
I just, I mean, so for me, it was 11. A lot of my friends, it was 10, 9, 10, 11, same age. You get touched a little bit, or you're told to do something, to your point earlier, and you just don't say nothing.
And we just turn. So ladies, is this a narrative that you've heard or familiar with?
Yeah. Before you said that, so I wrote down in my notes, getting rid of boys will be boys. And teaching accountability and being a good person. So that's where my mind went to, but you bringing up that perspective, I guess that's the whole point of this, from a man's perspective. I 100% agree. I definitely hear stories about that all the time, where a lot of my guy friends very early on were put into these kind of sexual situations that they weren't necessarily prepared for, or dads gloating about, what I did for my son for his 16th birthday was get him a hooker and lock them in the room together, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate you bringing up that perspective, because I immediately went to, well, what a dude can do differently. But I often do forget about the challenges on the other side of being a man and stuff. So, yeah, I definitely have heard that narrative, and I appreciate being reminded of that.
I would say I hear a lot of people talk about, or men folk, people who identify in that masculine. I'm giving mass today, if y'all didn't know. I'm just kidding.
Let's go.
No, but I do hear a lot of masculine people in their first sexual debut, and they describe it, and it's like, as they're talking, I'm like, this sounds like sexual assault, actually. Like, it doesn't sound like losing your virginity. It sounds like you were kind of forced
Taken advantage of.
into a situation and taken advantage of and expected to be okay with it. So that's kind of like, sounds like what you're saying.
It's similar. I mean, it's similar. It's like, and when you have an adult conversation with, somebody who identifies as a man, your homie or whatever, then you realize in that conversation, oh, maybe I was assaulted. And so you don't realize it until you're an adult that maybe that wasn't right. And so to your point of accountability, I think realizing that you actually were a victim of assault first is helpful. To have a man be accountable in their role of in consent. So knowing what it is first, knowing what it looks like, and then we'll be all right. But yeah,
absolutely.
One thing that really stood out to me while you were talking is just how similar it sounded to our previous conversation when we were talking about consent with women. It's like, how do we empower boys to feel like they're in control of their bodies? Because that's important in general. I have 2 sons, so it's very important to me that they don't feel like I have to do this because otherwise I'm going to be judged, or they should have autonomy over their bodies too. And I even think about what's that movie, Antoine Fisher, right? And it's like a situation that happened to him as a child that plagued him throughout his entire life.
What happened?
So his foster family, like the daughter, I think, in the foster family was molesting him, and he never talked about it, and it came out as an adult. And he's, I think, in the Marines or something. I don't know.
Marines, yeah, different ways. Anger,
anger, fighting a lot, just never had any other sexual experience with a woman because he was so turned off to that experience by this person who took advantage of him as a child. So I think we have to talk more about the fact that happens to boys and how it impacts the way that they navigate through the world, because it's layers, and it shows up in so many different ways.
I agree.
Part of this is our societal script that men are okay with any kind of sexual activity, whether it's what actually should be considered sexual assault or sexual harassment, or it is what you're choosing. Like, there is no narrative of men not wanting to have sex in our society.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up. All of it across the board is trash. Like, my partner and I kind of went through a moment of that at a job or whatever, and it was just a bunch of women, like, either trying to grab his ass or make these explicit comments about him and stuff. And for him, it was like, that's just how it goes. But I'm like, let's put me in them shoes. Is that just how it goes? No, I'm causing hell. So I caused hell. It was just like, that's not okay. But it opened up my mind to the script. Like men should accept that or like that, or I don't know. Women should want it.
Yeah. They should want
And
that.
there aren't consequences necessarily for women putting off that kind of behavior or attention that might not be wanted or desired or anything like that. But you got to roll with it because you a man.
Yeah.
And she's a chick. But let him treat any of them in that manner, and then it's write-ups and being fired and all that kind of stuff. So the script sucks.
The script does suck, and I'm curious. So, Dr. Ashley, I'm gonna ask you: is raising 2 boys, how do you first protect them, right, and teach them how to protect themselves, and then at the same time, the social norms that Amira is talking about. How do you build them up so that in that sense, like, if it's not okay, it's not okay, and for them to be able to speak out about it and not be shepherded by people's other social beliefs.
That's a loaded question, which we now know that you like to ask people.
Listen,
Not out of the norm.
we've been
Not at all.
working with.
Per you.
Perfectly on cue. So I think a big part for me, especially now, because they're 4 and 5, is making sure they understand good touching versus bad touching. If you feel uncomfortable, you should say something about it. You are always able to say no. Like, there's a whole joke, especially with my youngest Ace. We call him the shady baby because he could walk in a room and speak to no one. But that's what he's feeling in the moment. So I don't force him to do that. Or we'll go to my grandma's house and we're like, hey, Mama. And he's like, hey. And she's like, you gonna give me kisses? No. And no one forces him to do that. So I think, reinforcing that autonomy for them as they get older, that if you're not feeling that energy,
Love
you
that.
don't want to do that, it's perfectly okay for you to say no. So then as they get older, it's not abnormal. It's very, very normal for them to say, this doesn't feel good, I don't want to do this, let's stop. So that is one piece for me. The other piece is I always want to have open conversations with them and let them know that they're not being judged. So we had a conversation prior to you being here about my son and exploring his penis. Okay, cool. That feels good to you? Yes. Okay, go in your room and do it. So he's not like, oh my gosh, Mom is not allowing me to do something that's pleasurable for me and I have to hide this from her now. Like, I want them to, as they get older, feel comfortable saying, Mommy, I have a question about this. And it's not, a condom? Oh my gosh, you are going to, it's like a whole,
You're gonna go have sex right now.
Right. It's creating a space where if something did happen, he can tell me. So just like he would tell me that this kid at school took his bike or whatever, and he had this situation, that he could tell me that so-and-so touched his penis. And we can talk about what happened and how it made them feel, and then Mommy can stand up for him and, do the piece that he can't. So I think there's layers to that.
Mommy can go fight their parents real quick.
Yeah,
Just me and you.
What she said.
Yeah, I was gonna say to that point. I was raised by a single mom. She was very open. Like, my mom didn't. She was very open.
Love a girl.
And if you met her, I mean, we act similar, but she's very very free. She's always been like that. But she was also a victim of assault. And so I feel like from the beginning, she always told us, and literally checked us every day after school, did somebody touch you? She answered that every day.
What did that do for you?
I think it made me hypersensitive to it. And so I didn't let somebody touch me. I was like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. For sure I did. But because she felt like she didn't have a voice when she was younger. And so she just wanted to make sure, even though it was a little bit overkill, that we were okay at all times. She also still was free, though. She talked about everything from what it felt like for sex, what it's going to be like when I first have that encounter, for all of us, my brother and sisters. And so to that point, I think it was very helpful for her to be so free. We could talk to her about anything.
I love that.
That's
anything.
lovely. That's like a blessing.
She was not tight at all. Not at all. She was like, because tell me. Don't
That's a
talk with
blessing.
your friends on the bus, because they don't know. Tell me, and let's talk about it. So,
And that's a good point, because it's true. Like, if our kids they're teaching each other, they're being educated by ignorance. Like, literally.
The blind leading the blind.
It is. So,
Right.
even for your mom to be like, don't ask them fools, come and talk to me. Like, I could give you the real information. That's so important. That's so important.
yeah.
So y'all all kind of touched on women, a woman or a feminine person teaching a man about consent and like that vulnerability and intimacy of having that conversation. Do you all feel like your friends who are also male, you can have those conversations, or those spaces are made for you? Is it different now that you're an adult? Did you have that space when you were younger?
You see what she just said? She just hit you with one of your
Yeah, she
questions.
just
I liked it.
double
It was
whammy.
loaded.
Like, I love it.
Four questions in
Slow
one.
Your own
Yeah.
medicine.
So growing up, consent coming from my adults was horrible, right? Because it was really sexually exploited in that relationship. So, consent was not even a word. It doesn't exist. It was be sexually free, which was not okay, right? Even amongst, so I also at one point in time when I was in third grade, the kids in the apartment complex were all high school. So I learned how to masturbate in third grade from the high school kids and the high school girls, right? Which is, again, manipulation.
Oh my God, in third grade?
So consent, again, still not given, right? I'm not even learning it. Now, that in a sense of being able to explore those conversations or those things later in life, yes. But it never really happened with men. But I also come from an abused childhood, right? So on top of that, but I don't really start engaging men probably until college on any real level, period. But I've always been able to engage women. So I've always been comfortable talking to women. As I begin to learn what I do like and what I don't like, it was women who would be like, yo, Gail, you can say something or you can do this. And so that encouragement ended up coming from them. Later in life, a couple of the homies that I met in school, we would share stories. And I think gradually, it became conversations that we could consistently engage about what we do, what we don't do, who we do it with. But it took time. And
was it conversations around consent?
Yeah. So can't tell this story.
I'm just impressed y'all were having.
So yes, on a kink story, a group of us was at a party, and so. Yeah, so I'm trying to tell the story without telling the story because people will know who they are if they hear this.
Right.
You got this.
Yeah, so they will
You're gonna have to send some text after this and be like, listen.
So, we're all in the house as guys, girls, and so we're all having these conversations. And this is how keen we are on consent, right? So someone says, hey, would you like to? And the next person says yes. And so across the room and the engagement overall becomes a yes-no relationship, right? And so we're always constantly talking about what you can and can't do. Because most of us are more of in a higher freaky or what people would identify freakier spaces, right? Okay. On top of that, we were kind of also the protector of our girlfriends, like not just our girlfriends that we're dating, but the girls who were in our sphere of influence. Okay. And so men who we would identify as predators, we dealt with. So it was nothing for one of our girls to call us and be like, yo, so-and-so approached us and did X, Y, Z. And we would tell them, like, you need to stay away from this person, you need to stay away from that person. So it was never a direct, hey, let's talk about consent. But it was consistently talking about how we keep each other safe and how we continue to build what you said, our community, right? Yeah. We were giving each other agency before we even knew what agency was. So we didn't have phrases for what we do. It just became who we are.
Everything definitely has a name and, like we said earlier, a category and a specification and all these things. And so I feel you on that. But that sounds really dope, though. Yeah. Like that y'all just naturally proceeded that way.
Yeah, it just happened. I will say, like, there's some commonalities, right, in all the men in the relationships. Most of us were raised by a single mom. Most of us had been in some relative traumatized lifestyle or lived in a very violent community. And so I think the uniqueness of that, we bonded. So maybe we call it a trauma bond, but in that, people who come from trauma, who know how to survive in it, are looking for ways to thrive in it. And you tend to bond with people who can elevate you out. And I think that's what we were able to do. And so that exploration when it comes to sexuality came with it as well, right? So one of our friends was gay, not gay, but
one or the other,
gay or not gay.
Let's just say he's heterosexual, but he does gay things.
Okay.
Sexuality.
They're living life.
Yeah, true story. Right. You know what I mean? But we used to be able to have those conversations, and we'd always used to tease him. Like as a group, we would tease him, like, "Dude, you gay?"
Oh no, the group roast.
Yeah, but in real life, like. He wasn't gay. It was his sexual experiences and what he desired and what he liked it was his thing. Yeah. And so I don't know. It was a natural course for us. What about you, Doc?
I don't know. I feel like it was grounded in like lies. Meanwhile, like I'm saying that like in middle school, I'm thinking about middle school experience. So we talking about sex. None of us had sex at that time. we told each other later in high school that we didn't, but we lied to each other. Yeah, bro, I was with and we're like 11, 12, 13. I don't know what I'm doing, and you don't either. But it was grounded in lies, right? So we lied, and yes, maybe one or two of us were sexually active, and so we talked about that, but it was never like aggression or like a violent aspect of it. When you move to high school, though, when you get to those, different clubs, different, sports and stuff, then you get more conversation.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you are faced with a potential homie that maybe he's talking crazy, like, yeah, man, I just went, she acted like she didn't want to do something, but I just did it anyway. Yeah. I just kind of pushed her. And then in those conversations, yes, we did have those. Mm-hmm. And similar to you, raised by a single mom, so my mom was always like, you take care of a woman. You got to open the door, So with my friends, I had a majority female friends. And so that was just how I lived. Mm-hmm. I took care of them naturally. I have female friends now, majority, just like navigating academia. That's just the way it is for Black people, usually more Black women. But so yeah, I've protected them my whole life. And so that meant for me approaching somebody along with friends and being like, that wasn't cool. Yeah. Maybe putting some fisticuffs up. Yeah. I don't know. It's just whatever you got to do to stop the behavior. We did that. And if it was somebody who continued that behavior, we tried to tell someone, or we just stopped messing with them, really.
Yeah.
I love that.
I guess that's what I was kind of wondering, because I feel like maybe a lot of, you think about sexual assault, and as a lot of people think about it as like a women's issue. And that men aren't really involved in the conversation, or we could get a lot further if men would talk to other men about that when they see something's wrong. So it's positive to me to hear that you would speak up if you were in a locker room talk.
Yeah. Or fight them. Because restorative justice shows up.
Yeah, that's right. That's kind of my thing, though. I'm like, you won't fight. But I've always been like that since I was little. But that's my thing. I try not to go there, y'all, but every now and then. But you have to be intentional about it. And sometimes you got to be aggressive with it because you have to meet masculine energy.
Yeah.
And y'all know how to talk to each other.
You have to meet it. And you be like, no, bro, that's wrong. And you got to be like, you got to, you got to buck up a little bit.
Yeah. And I feel like that would go a long way in fighting sexual assault and like anti-consent if more men were like, hey, that's not cool, and it's okay for me. I can stand in my masculine energy and tell you that's not cool.
That's right.
And it can be what it is.
Because it happens every day in so many subtle ways or not so subtle ways. And when we witness that, or when men witness that, the decision right there on that moment is to either interject, check in with that person, or take some action, or don't take any action at all. So I think just getting into that mindset of community and protecting one another, and taking action when it comes to, when you witness things like that, I think just those little steps a day can begin to shift that culture there, because a lot of shit is slid. Like, we let a lot of stuff slide. You know what I'm saying? Either because we're scared of the conflict, we don't want no trouble in our own circles or something like that. So I commend you and your peoples for that, and definitely encourage more men. I don't want to just say men because I'm a gentlewoman, so I steps in, okay? But just encourage that behavior altogether, because that is how you build community. That's how you validate one another's experiences. That is how victims don't feel like they're being shamed in these situations. So yeah, I commend that, and I agree. It's the little steps. It's the little steps. It's the fisticuffs. No, I'm just like,
it is. I think in many ways, and I've had this conversation, and sometimes I play devil's advocate in my boxes.
You seem like that type.
I do, right? Because I think sometimes as we're talking about sexual assault, we typically are talking about rape, right? Which is, in my mind, the extreme of sexual assault, right?
But I woke up with someone on top of me.
Yeah.
They didn't succeed in trying to penetrate me.
Yeah.
But I wasn't taken serious in that moment.
Right.
Even though I woke up with them on top of me. So yeah, spectrum
There's
is
a
Yeah,
spectrum.
there is, and I think sometimes one leads to the next, and so if we don't talk about it in early phases, if it doesn't become like our common conversation, you know, it's no different than trading stocks. If you trade stocks in your family, right, your children or your parents are going to teach you how to do it. Most entrepreneurs come from entrepreneurial families. Most people who end up becoming pastors have you know, there's this thing that we can within our families, our community, we connect to. Right, already, and I think in this relationship, when we're talking about sex and consent, this is not an ongoing conversation, right? And when we're talking about sexual assault, we're not talking about the spectrum of sexual assault, right? And I think maybe that's part of the start and part of the process of doing this, because I would like to believe that there are less rapists in the world, and there are more me's and Dr. Jasons in the world, right, who are consistently engaging. Because what I'm hearing right now, just in this, when I growing up or hanging out with some of the folks we hang out with, they say, well, you guys aren't the norm. Well, maybe we are, right? And the norm isn't talked about enough. And since we consistently are talking about the extreme, it gets more play and it looks more dominant. And maybe if we begin to emulate, right, and teach better, right? So how do we prep our boys and our young girls into this world of consent, and that make that the carry?
I think it's a
we
cultural
lessen.
thing.
Yeah,
I think it's a cultural thing.
I think it's a culture thing.
People
too.
from the top, like, clearly don't validate, like, women's experiences or childbirthing people's experiences or whatever. I mean, just for the simple fact of, like, abortions are illegal, no matter the circumstance, to include, I was raped and I don't want the perpetrator's child. So I think it's a cultural thing. I would love to think of it as a norm, but the head, I don't want to say the head honchos, but the whole umbrella that we're trying to break through for history has invalidated these uncomfortable experiences that we need to talk about and validate and like solve. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. Like they, I don't know, like from start, like why is there a father of gynecology? Like, you know what I'm saying? So I feel that's a cultural thing. And I agree with you that there are many people like you out there, but that's not what's necessarily being discussed. And I don't know, again, if that's because that's not, it's still like a push against, like, that's not the goal necessarily, because we still want to control and overpower women or those beneath, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think norms are created by society. So if for someone to say you're not the norm, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not the majority. It just means you're not the norm.
All my life, I ain't heard about y'all.
Right. But I think part of
experience.
it is those little steps and like empowering other men to step up and say that creates a norm. So right now, I feel like there's a lot of fear of, if I step
Like,
up
it's not cool.
and I say that you shouldn't do that when no one else is saying anything, then I'm the odd.
You're the odd man out. You're looked at weird or something.
In my head, the norm is to not say anything. The norm is to disempower women when it comes to sex. That's what masculinity looks like. That's the norm. But if we empower more people to speak up, then the norm looks like you don't disempower women. The norm looks like you do protect women. So I agree with your statement of there's probably more of you all out there, but they have to speak up. And they have to change what the norm is.
Change the narrative. Yeah.
You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize what that range of sexual assault looks like first, right? Because you have to recognize it so people know what they're doing when they do it. And so then when that happens, then you can call somebody to accountability, right? And so unless you know, what you gonna do?
Right.
And so to your point, yes, we have to, as those who do, identify it, be more intentional about it, be more public about it. Like, this ain't. Be loud about it.
Yeah.
This is what you're not supposed to do in a situation. Even if you're like in a club situation, don't put your hand on somebody's lower back. They don't know you. They don't know you, bro. They don't know you. And so I get it. You know,
That
because
so much. Like,
it happens a lot.
Gross.
It happens a lot. And then what it is then a man will say, well, then how am I supposed to talk to somebody? Talk to somebody.
Hands to yourself.
You do not have to touch
Talk to somebody.
Your mouth is up here.
Listen.
Our
Am I
hands
supposed to
are
talk to
down
someone?
here.
Just talk
This
to
is the
somebody.
boys will be boys.
So,
Sorry.
I mean,
to
we
y'all's
teach
point,
people keep their hands to themselves.
keep your hands to yourself.
That's what you talking
Recognize it. There are, I feel like there.
They
That's
do
right.
though.
Well, they,
so
yeah,
let's be honest about
good
let's be
person.
honest
Yeah.
about that.
Touch each other. when you talk?
Men do touch each other, right? Like we will touch each other. So
Shoulder.
like this right here is a dominant
I thought you was gonna
position.
try to
Sorry,
touch
can I
it.
touch you?
That's fine.
You know what I mean?
I'm about to say, because you showed didn't ask for consent. to touch me.
Well, we over here talking about men and consent.
Right,
Yeah.
so sometimes for a lot of people, this is a dominant positioning of touching,
That's what I was
right?
thinking
So
up
men do
here.
this to men all the time. You know what this means? I'm better than you. I'm stronger than you, right? And some men will touch men here. You know what that means?
Is that the lower back?
The lower back?
Right?
Men
Yes.
touch
I know they
men's
touch
back.
lower backs.
Have you ever had a dude come up beside you and push you out there? Where does he push you? He uses your lower back.
Oh, okay, so they do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're talking about is a behavior across the board. Now, I've had women do it to me, right, as well. Does it mean the same? I don't know, because I didn't stop to ask. But I can traditionally tell you if a man does it to me, what position he's trying to take within a dominant role.
Yeah, trying to be
Right?
dominant every year.
I guess
So-
I wasn't aware that men touch other men like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means different things. Because
Maybe,
it
but don't
sounds
touch
like,
Don't touch me.
Yeah.
just put your hands to
In
yourself.
general.
Some people
don't
have
touch me.
boundary issues, right? They don't understand
Yeah.
personal space. We talked about this a little bit in the last show, like understanding body positioning and knowing how to read body language. And then again, touch. Touch is a dominant position. I don't like necessarily for people to touch me if I don't know you, right? So, but a lot of that has to do with
communicate
that,
through
Don't touch me,
touch.
bro.
right?
That's one of my things.
So, but if that's your language and the person that you're talking to, that's a conversation you're having.
Right.
So if we communicate through touch, that's our conversation. But that doesn't mean somebody from the outside world, because they see us communicating this way, gets
they
to
can
come up and do
communicate
it,
the
right?
same way.
Because they haven't gotten
Right.
consent. They're not part of this
That
community.
relationship is
Yes,
real.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think where we have to get into, again, the whole conversation about consent is how we do that. But men are people. I think are people, and men, yes, they have bad behaviors with touching people.
Yeah.
Sometimes I do think some men are doing it intentionally. I do believe that some men don't know any better, right? I learned this. So I learned body language and engagement through doing loss prevention and interrogating thieves, right?
Wait, run that back.
Pause.
Okay,
What?
so you learned about consent with men through loss prevention.
Yes.
That's if you steal from Target.
Yes.
And interrogation,
The pat down.
questioning them in the back room in Target.
yes.
The pat down. Right? The pat down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
The pat down,
So I mean,
which can take place anywhere, I guess.
absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So all of these things, like all the rules and lessons. Now, again, I get to live in a different space and have different experiences. I definitely would love to hear from other people, but yeah, I think again, some people have an intent for what they're doing, and others don't know any better. And we need to educate. We need to teach. We need to teach our daughters. We need to teach our sons. And as adults, as we're learning, right? We're all
believe
different
each
age
other.
groups. We're all getting to a different age level where we're still trying to figure things out,
Hell yeah.
right? And we're learning the nuances just in this conversation,
Yeah.
right? And so maybe we get to walk out of here a little different and thinking, how do we prepare the next generation? How do we prepare our friends and say, man, I learned this. Did you know? Just a thought. So I know we got to wrap up because we've been at this for a minute. And we're gonna have to do another consent
Great
conversation.
conversation, guys.
I appreciate
Yes, please, have me.
We got 2 part 2s.
So as we walk away, we got 2 part 2s, right? Before we walk away, Jason, any last thoughts? Dr. Jason, any last thoughts?
Dr. Thank you, guys.
Put some respect on
Yes.
his name.
I worked hard, guys.
Yes, absolutely.
But no, really, too, I think what I really wanted from the conversation is to have solutions. And I think we talked about it, right? Holding each other accountable, specifically men. Educating on what sexual assault looks like and the spectrum of that. And then what can we do to be intentional, be public about how to stop what's going on, sexual assault, right? We have to have some solutions, write it down, jot it down, and broadcast it out.
Yeah.
So that we make each other accountable, build community, and stop it. They need to be stopped. So that's ultimately, yes. That's it.
Ladies, any takeaways?
Oh, that was a good closing.
I mean,
right there.
he just
Yeah, no, it was
It's
Recreate
done.
the
Nice
norm.
to know.
that. Recreate,
Recreate the norm.
reimagine the norm.
Reimagine.
Let's go. So here it is, good people. We appreciate you hanging out with us. This is our 4th episode. We got a lot more coming. I hope you love it. We hope you're learning from it. Hit the like, subscribe, throw something in the comments, give us some reviews. Let us know if anything resonates with you or if there's something you would like us to cover. We'd be happy to sit down and have our comment conversation about let's talk about sex and your personality. No, not your personality. But I'm done. Y'all good? Got it? Good. See you in the next episode.
Bye, y'all.
This program is supported by the Health Equity Innovation Hub at the University of Louisville. The views expressed are not necessarily those of the funder.